We'll now move to question time. I call Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Across the government's housing funds, how many dwellings have now been completed because of Commonwealth support since Labor came to office? What is the number? I'm not looking for how many houses were funded or approved or in the pipeline. The question is how many were completed and are available to occupy.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. You know, I wish I could ask Liberal senators questions, because I would ask Senator Bragg why he, as a moderate, appears to have gone down the path that Scott Morrison was suggesting. It seemed to be a very, very atypical. Yes, I would take an objection if I were you. Very embarrassed.
Minister Wong.
Very embarrassing.
Minister Wong,
where are the moderates?
Just resume your seat. Order. Order on my right. Order on my right. Senator Bragg.
Thank you, President. Point of order on relevance. This so far has nothing to do with the content of housing.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong had just started her answer, but I will draw her back to the question.
I can understand why you're embarrassed, Senator. I understand why you're embarrassed. And I understand why he's embarrassed too, as someone who has relationships with his community.
Wong,
but
please,
I will now turn to the numbers
Minister
that
Wong,
are—
please resume your seat. Senator Henderson. Order. Order on my right. Senator Watt. Order. Order. Senator Ayres. I should not have to call— Senator Watt. Senator Watt, you are now being disrespectful towards me. Senator Henderson.
Thank you very much, President. The point of order, I just would ask that you would ask Senator Wong to direct her comments through the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure, President, and I'm sure that the senator knows that Senator Bragg is probably, and Senator Scarr are probably tough enough to handle me looking at them. But what I would say is this. There is a number that is very important, and that is a number that is 373, which is the total number of social and affordable homes that the party you are part of built in a decade. So we are delivering 55.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. I'll wait for silence. I'm waiting for silence. Senator Bragg.
Thank you, President. On relevance, the question was about how many houses have been completed.
Yep. I think the minister was going to respond to your question, Minister Wong, please continue.
Sensitive, you're getting punchy. So we have a job. We are getting on with the job of delivering 55,000 social and affordable homes. 5,000 social and affordable homes have been completed through Commonwealth programs. A further 25,000 are in construction and planning, including over 18,000 through the HAF, and 21,000 more social and affordable homes will be commissioned this year through the Housing Australia Future Fund. And the problem for Senator Bragg is that his is a party that has always believed that government doesn't have a role in housing. And so when he comes in here to have a go at government's doing something about it, people know he comes from a political perspective, apparently increasingly right-wing, as one of the three parties, right-wing parties. He comes from a perspective that says actually government shouldn't have to do anything like this, which is why he has voted consistently against what this government has brought to this chamber to try and ensure we increase supply.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In MyEFO 2025-2026, the government lifted Housing Australia's borrowing cap from $26 billion to $44 billion. How many additional completed dwellings will that extra borrowing produce, and by what date?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I'm sure those details are something you will traverse ad nauseum in estimates. But what people will know is that we have completed homes and we have more on the way. What they will know about you is that you do not believe that government has a role in increasing housing supply. Now, Senator, I'll take the interjection from Senator Cash. It is relevant. It is relevant to the credibility of a housing spokesperson if they don't actually think government should be engaged in increasing supply.
Minister Wong.
That's relevant to your credibility or lack thereof.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
On relevance, President, the question was quite clear about how many dwellings will be built as a result of the extra borrowing.
Senator Bragg, I'm sure you're also aware that if senators interject, it is quite proper for any minister to take those interjections, and Minister Wong was being directly relevant to the interjection. I would advise senators not to make an interjection. Minister Wong.
We are unapologetic for making the changes that we believe are required to deliver the ambitious housing objectives we have. We are unapologetic for that, Senator. And the reality is we are clear that we are the only party in this place and in this country that is actually wanting to invest in and deliver more housing for Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
I don't think you know the answer. Okay. Thank you very much. After orchestrating the largest population surge since the 50s, whilst overseeing a historic collapse in housing construction, as well as driving up prices with a 5% deposit scheme, and now higher interest rates, do you now concede that Labor has failed on housing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Minister Wong.
Well, the answer is no. But again, what I would say, Senator, is that you and your party have consistently opposed every aspect of our housing agenda from woe to go. And you are consistent with that. And it would be better if you could front up to the Australian people and say, actually, you know what? We don't think government has a role in ensuring more housing supply. You know, because that would be a more honest thing to do than coming in here and asking questions, pretending to care. You don't care because you don't actually believe government should be doing this. We have a different view. We want to build more houses for more Australians because we understand what housing means to Australians. We want to provide more social and affordable housing. We want to add to the private housing supply, and we want to ensure that home ownership is within reach of more Australians. That is the difference between the Labor Party and the divided three parties on the right.
Senator Delija.
Thanks very much, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Since coming to government, the Albanese Labor government has focused on dealing with the inflation challenge across the economy and getting the budget into better shape. How has the government approached this task while maintaining low unemployment and growth across the economy?
Thank you, Senator Delija. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Delija for the question. And it's an important question about how this government has managed the budget over the last 3 years and the approach that we will take going forward. Responsible economic management has been a defining feature of the Albanese government. December's MyEFO was the only one on record that delivered a better bottom line in every year of the forward estimates, less debt in every year of the forward estimates, and net policy decisions that improved the bottom line. On this combination of measures, it's the most responsible mid-year update on record. Since we've come to government, we've delivered the biggest nominal turnaround in the budget in history, $233.5 billion improvement across the budget on our watch. We've found $114 billion in savings since coming to government. Gross debt this year is $176 billion lower than what we inherited when those opposite lost government in 2022. The progress we've made on the budget means we've been able to avoid more than $60 billion in interest payments alone, and we've been able to do that whilst at the same time making sure that we have seen strong jobs growth across the economy. Getting the budget in better shape has been important to that. Getting wages moving again, important to that. Making sure women get a better deal across the economy, also been a key priority for this government, and we will continue with this approach. And it's in stark contrast to what we saw when those opposite were in government. We saw deficits, promises of surpluses never delivered. We've delivered 2 surpluses. We've lessened the deficit in every year from what we inherited in 2022. We've been finding savings and we've been able to manage and
Thank you,
progress
Minister.
reforms
the time
in
for
important
answering
areas.
has expired. Senator De Liga, first supplementary.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Minister. Job creation and getting wages moving again has been a central part of the Albanese Labor government's economic plan. How has strengthening the budget supported these objectives while keeping the focus on lowering inflation and supporting households with cost of living?
Thank you, Senator De Liga. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I think the question, it's an important one again about jobs, because we on this side of the chamber understand the importance of having a job and of being able to create jobs in new areas, but also support good wage outcomes, something, again, those opposite ignored during their entire time in government. It is important to recognise that we've been able to manage, in this high inflation time that we've had over the last 3 years, unemployment rate at 4.1%. That was what it was in December, and a labour force participation rate rising to 66.7%. In December, 65,000 more people were in work, which takes the number of Australians employed to a record high of 14,684,000 Australians. This shows that we've got a labour market that continues to grow, creating opportunities for all Australians, with full-time jobs accounting for the vast majority of the increase in employment over that month.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator De Liga, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. How will the Albanese Labor government continue strengthening the budget and delivering meaningful reform, whilst also supporting Australians with cost of living pressures? Thanks, Minister.
Thank you, Senator De Liga. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Senator De Liga, for that question as well. The government, as we enter all of the intense work period over the next few months in the lead-up to the budget, will of course be looking at how we can support Australians with cost of living pressures, how we manage the budget, how we find savings, not only to return to budget to lower the debt and deficit that we inherited from those opposite, but also to make sure that we've got room for important priorities, whether they be in defence, whether they be in health, dealing with the pressures in the NDIS that Minister McAllister is leading, whether it be in aged care. All of these areas where we're seeing continued demand, managing that and providing cost of living assistance with the tax cuts that will come in. We've got a load of all of our measures that we've already introduced, including increasing PPL and issues like that, that will continue to roll out to support households across Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr.
The Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. Minister, yesterday the Reserve Bank of Australia announced a decision that many struggling Australian families had feared but hoped wouldn't happen, a large interest rate rise. Yesterday you did not know how much, or you refused to tell us how much, your government's interest rate rise would increase monthly repayments for someone with a $600,000 mortgage. Minister, how much more a month will the government's interest rate rise cost hard-working Australians who have a $600,000 mortgage?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to answer in the same way I answered yesterday, which is I'm not here. It depends on a range of factors. I'll leave it to Senator Scarr to do the various scenarios if he chooses to do so. Our focus is on supporting households while they deal with cost of living pressures across the economy. And we recognise that people are under pressure. And when we have brought measures to this chamber to support households with those pressures, what has happened over there? What has happened, Senator Cash? You voted no every single time, whether it be energy bill rebates, whether it be housing investments, whether it be some of the investments we've done in health, on cheaper medicines. Remember how they fought tooth and nail to make sure that we couldn't allow people to have 60-day prescribing, to actually pay half the price of the medicines. Oh, no, you're not allowed that. We want you to pay twice as much as you should. That was the position over there. So I am not going to be lectured by Senator Scarr and others about how we support households when inflation is higher than we would like. We get that households are under pressure on this side. That's why all of us turn up to work every day, not to fight each other in a race to the sky interview room, but actually think about our constituents, the people that we were sent here to serve. That's what we are doing. Every single day, that's what this group does. We talk about how to help people, and we watch in shock and horror as you tear each other apart. We cannot believe it. The indulgent exercise that we have witnessed for the last month or so as you tear each other down while we are turning up to work every day to make sure we look after people and do everything we can to help them at this point in time.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Queenslanders will note that there was no answer to that question. Minister, how many more interest rate rises will hard-working Australians with a mortgage have to endure before you realise your government's failure to reduce spending is causing this problem?
Order. Minister Gallagher.
Well, I think the people of Queensland are looking at you lot and are shocked, frankly, at the way you are behaving. I think that's what they'll be thinking right now. I think it's clear from Senator Scarr's question that he hasn't read the statement on monetary policy which was released yesterday alongside the bank's decision, because if he had, he would have read the analysis that the bank put out about the drivers, about what they see as the most significant drivers of pressure on inflation in the economy. And he will have seen that, according to the bank, the upside surprise has been in the area of private demand, and in fact government spending doesn't feature as part of that. We will continue to do what we have done when we inherited an inflation accelerating at 6% and rising when you left government. It is much lower than that now, but the job is not done.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator Scarr had read the statement. He'd also read all the expert economists with their views as well. When will you say sorry to families who will lose their homes because Labor's policies are keeping interest rates higher for longer?
Order. Order. Senator Ayres. Senator Ayres. Senator Cash. I do appreciate that Senator Scarr has a loud voice, but he's also entitled to ask his question in silence, as the minister is also rightly to expect to be heard in silence. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I do like Senator Scarr in the third person, so thank you for that. But we recognise, the answer to that question is similar to the one I gave in answer to the first question. We recognise on this side of the chamber people are under pressure, and that's why we're doing something about it. We're not just acknowledging it, we're doing something about it. With tax cuts for every taxpayer coming in July this year and next year, we've got our bulk billing incentive, we've got the cheaper medicines that you opposed. Now, you go and explain to a room full of Australians why you wanted them to pay double for their prescription every month. Why did you take that position and then come in here and say you've got concerns about people under pressure? We're doing something about it. Cheaper medicine. We're backing higher wages. We've cut HECS debt by 20%. There are a range of actions underway by this government delivering cost of living relief for Australian households.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Finance Minister representing the Treasurer, Minister Gallagher. Housing cost is the single biggest contributor to recent inflation. The RBA Governor yesterday singled out credit growth as a cause for concern. We know that property investors have borrowed a record-high $40 billion in the last 3 months of last year alone, and that's largely to buy existing homes, not for new builds. Investors are flooding into the market at record rates, and the Labor government is giving them massive tax handouts to help them push up house prices. Will Labor use this budget to cut these unfair tax handouts for property investors and give renters and first home buyers a real shot at buying a home?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, and I thank Senator Waters for the question. And this government is rolling out, and as Senator Wong outlined in her earlier question, a very ambitious housing agenda that we started in 2022 when we came to government, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to increase the supply of housing across the economy. That has been our focus. Our tax policies on housing haven't changed. We've said a number of times, I've heard the Treasurer say it a number of times, I know it was raised at the Economic Reform Roundtable, that we do think there are intergenerational issues in housing. But our work over the last 3 years or so has been on supply side, on making sure that we are doing everything we can, whether it's working with the states and territories to deal with some of the planning and regulation around housing that delays the construction of housing and adds to costs, or whether it is actually dealing with the social and affordable end of the housing market, which the Housing Australia Future Fund plays a role in. Our Social Housing Accelerator is another area of example where we have worked hard, again, to target some of that assistance to deliver increased supply, and we are seeing some early good signs in terms of building approvals, new dwelling construction and dwelling commencements. We are seeing some pleasing signs in that area. So the measures that all governments across Australia, it's not just the Commonwealth Government, all of us, are working on to deliver an outcome on housing are starting to work. There is more to do, and we consider all of these things as we put the budget together over the next few months.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary. Thank you. There's speculation today that Labor will reform the capital gains tax discount in this year's budget. According to Treasury, an astonishing 54% of this tax handout goes to the wealthiest 1%, and just 4% of it goes to people under 35. This is the most unfair tax handout in the Commonwealth Tax Code. When will Labor scrap this handout to the 1%? Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, as I said in answer to the earlier question, our tax policies haven't changed. In relation to tax reform, we do have a number of reforms underway, and we've said repeatedly that we're up to consider further work, particularly work that comes out of that Economic Reform Roundtable. When we're looking at what we've got to do now, we've got instant deductions to implement, we've got a better targeted super to get through the parliament, we've got the tax cuts that will come in over the next little while, we've got the low-income tax offset in super that we will also need to implement. All of that is underway, so I think you can see that we have a range of areas underway on tax reform, but our position on housing and tax has not changed.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary. Thanks, President. On another unfair tax handout the Greens have called out for decades, scrapping fuel tax credits, which give cheap diesel to big mining companies, would free up around $8 billion a year, which could be used for cost-of-living relief to households. If Labor is going to cut spending to deal with inflation, will you cut this unfair fossil fuel subsidy for big mining companies? Minister Gallagher.
I think in the earlier answer I covered the areas where we are currently working in tax reform. So it's delivering on the tax cuts we took to the last election. It's our better targeted superannuation reform. It's the instant deduction, which was also an election commitment of ours. It's the low-income super tax offset that we have announced. All of those areas are the focus. In relation to other areas of tax, our policies haven't changed.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Mulholland.
My question is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, Senator Ayres. The Albanese Labor government is driving new investment in world-class industrial firms in regional Australia. The National Reconstruction Fund recently announced a $75 million investment in Alpha HPA, a high-purity alumina company in Gladstone, Queensland. Minister, why is high-purity alumina such a crucial part of our global tech supply chains? What will the funding mean for Alpha HPA, and how many new jobs in Gladstone in particular will be generated by this investment?
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Senator Ayres.
Well, I'd like to thank Senator Mulholland for her question about the National Reconstruction Fund's most recently announced project. Alpha HPA in central Queensland that it is a fantastic development for Australia, a fantastic development for Gladstone and Central Queensland. High-purity alumina is a critical input into artificial intelligence, data centre cooling systems, into semiconductors, into all sorts of pharmaceutical and battery supply chains around the world. And Gladstone, Queensland will be the home of the world's largest high-purity alumina production facility because of the Albanese government's National Reconstruction Fund investment in that facility, crowding in $225 million, which will open a factory that provides 420 construction jobs and then 120 permanent blue-collar trades, production and engineering jobs, 80 of those in Gladstone in Central Queensland. That is world-class manufacturing in a Central Queensland regional economy that the National Party in particular have left for dead, have walked away from the key issues that will drive competitiveness and blue-collar jobs in regional areas. The local member, Mr Boyce, remember him? He has always opposed. Well, he's doing a pretty good job of promoting himself. I watched his interview on Sky. We'll come back to him in a minute, I suppose.
Order. Order. I'm waiting for order. Senator Watt and Senator McKenzie. Order. Senator Watt. Senator Mulholland, first supplementary.
It is refreshing to see a government interested in delivering for regional jobs, not just getting more jobs for the boys in this place. And that is why the Albanese government set up the National Reconstruction Fund to drive industrial investment, deliver good blue-collar jobs and make the economy more resilient and productive. As the Alpha HPA investment in Gladstone shows, the government is delivering for regional Queensland. Why is it important for the government to back Australian industrial firms in the regions?
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Senator McKenzie, you may have moved down the chamber, but your interjections are just as loud. Now, some might think that's quite an achievement. I'm not one of them, and I'm asking you to lower your voice. Minister Ayres.
I suppose they'll get a question at some point this week, I guess. But the alternative views, the people standing in the way of the National Reconstruction Fund and the Future Made in Australia program, which is Australia's largest ever pro-manufacturing package, is Poor Old One Nation, Mr Boyce and his friends over here in the once-proud National Party and the Liberal Party, who have opposed electricity development for industry in Australia, who have opposed the National Reconstruction Fund, delivering 520 jobs in this one announcement in regional Australia, have got an utterly contemptible approach to industrial policy, are all about— and you hear Senator McKenzie, he got a swing to him. Well, what happened when he was in government? Industrial jobs flooded offshore, imported ideas, exported manufacturing jobs.
Senator Mulholland, second supplementary.
Thank you. It's been a wild old week in this place. Senator Ayres, why do investors need clear and coherent policy to have the confidence to back—
Order.
Why do investors need clear and coherent policy to have the confidence to back Australian industry? And what parts of the community are affected if policy is incoherent?
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Minister Ayres.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Mulholland, again for that question. What the Liberals and Nationals have done is import weird extremist foreign ideas and export Australian manufacturing jobs whenever they've had the chance. This government, by contrast, is providing a partnership with the private sector and in the investment community, which is delivering good quality blue-collar jobs, good quality engineering and trades opportunities, good opportunities for start-up Australian businesses that will rebuild the manufacturing sector that Senator Canavan and Senator McKenzie and all these characters over there have been utterly dedicated to destroying. We will work with industry to deliver future electricity, future energy that is going to deliver manufacturing jobs for decades to come. That's what we're about.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Social Services, Minister Gallagher. The Commonwealth Ombudsman found that in 2019, Services Australia became aware that its administration of child support was not compliant with the law, resulting in some parents who were legally entitled to child support not receiving it. The Ombudsman found that Service Australia made a deliberate decision not to apply the law as written and continued that practice for years. Minister, why was a government-funded agency allowed to knowingly continue administering a program in breach of the law once that non-compliance had been identified?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question. This is a question that it's an issue that we have talked about and indeed discussed at estimates around some of the issues that have arisen around the implementation of income support payments and areas where agencies have been advised that they are not in compliance with the law and where the policy intent is not necessarily supported by the legal framework. Since coming into this portfolio, I have been discussing this with Services Australia, but also the Policy Arm Department, which is led under Minister Plibersek, to consolidate all of the areas where there are concerns. There are some where it's around legal compliance. There are others where it's around policy compliance, and try and pull that all together and work our way through how we're addressing each one of them. And there are a number of areas. We've fixed up a couple of those in the bill that was passed in December. There is another bill coming in. I think it's coming into the House next week that deals with a number of other areas. And I think there'll be further amendments that we will have to bring to this chamber to deal with it, where the policy intent, where the understanding was that there weren't any legal compliance issues, but where new advice has provided that there are, and we are working through all of those. It is not discretionary about whether government agencies follow the law. They must follow the law, and where there are issues identified where compliance has been questioned or not supported by legal advice, then the job is to bring it here and deal with those matters and address them through amendments or changing the way it's implemented through Services Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, the Ombudsman found that this was not an administrative error or an IT failure, but a conscious decision to continue a practice known to be unlawful. Does the minister accept that knowingly choosing not to apply the law is a failure of governance? And if so, who has been held accountable for that decision?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, the issue that you talk about, and it's covered by the Ombudsman report, dates back a number of years. Certainly since I've taken the portfolio on, I have tried to coordinate and pull together all of the areas where there are concerns around the legislative, the law and compliance with the law. I know Services Australia takes the Ombudsman's recommendations very seriously and is working to implement all of those recommendations. I'm advised that all recommendations will be implemented by the end of January. There are further legislative amendments that I alluded to in my last answer that need to be prioritised and are being prioritised by the government by giving that the relevant status to get those amendments in and before the parliament as soon as possible. But it is a big piece of work that we need to get done, and I imagine as we continue there will be other issues identified that get added to this coordination approach to deal with it.
Answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. So no one's been held accountable as yet. Minister, the Ombudsman found that the Department of Social Services was aware of this unlawful administration by 2020. yet detailed briefings to ministers did not occur until late 25, more than 5 years later. Is the minister saying she was not informed for 5 years about a known, ongoing breach of the law, or that she was informed and no action was taken? And in either case, how is that consistent with ministerial responsibility?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Gallagher.
Yes, so that is my understanding. The issue was first uncovered in 2019. Obviously, we were not in government until 2022, and I did not get the government services portfolio until permanently until May this year. Since coming into government and being into this position and being briefed on some of these issues, and I have essentially, with Minister Plibersek, pulled together a range of issues, because there are issues around legal compliance, there's issues around that can be fixed without amendments to the law that need to be dealt with, and we're dealing with those. Also looking at impact on customers as a way of prioritising with that. I think in last estimates we advised the committee there was over 144 areas that we were working on. This is certainly one of them and is being prioritised. But I can only answer for the time I've been in the job, and I would say we are holding portfolio agencies responsible.
Minister, the time for answering has expired. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Banks are passing on interest rate rises. Families today are making more sacrifices to afford higher home loan repayments as a result of Labor's rising inflation. A family in Bendigo with a $500,000 home loan on a medium-priced property faces an extra $950 a year on repayments. And under Labor's big spending, inflation is likely to remain above target for some time, with the risk of further increases in rates in coming months. When will the government accept responsibility for its contribution to rising inflation, which will cause millions of Australian families, homeowners and small businesses financial pain?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, it's a very similar question to the one that Senator Scarr asked, but obviously you hadn't shared those questions. My answer is that yesterday's news will be very difficult for those households on mortgages, and we acknowledge that and we're acting upon it. In relation to the claim that government spending, and specifically the claim that the federal government, when of course the bank looks at all governments across Australia and the decisions they're taking, it was not cited as a reason for the decision yesterday. I mean, it's just a fact. I'm not trying to shift accountability here or responsibility here. I'm standing and answering it. But the point is, if you read the statement on monetary policy, the pressures that are adding to inflation in the economy in the latest data, as the bank outlined, has been the upside on private demand. That is just the reality. On the budget handling, we have found $114 billion worth of savings. Frankly, when you were in government, you didn't come anywhere near that. There were nowhere near it. We got rid of the buckets of funds and waste that you had buried into your budget as payoff to the Nationals at that point in time, regional buckets of funding that was buried in the budget as wasteful spending. We got rid of it. We have cleaned up the budget. We have got it in much better shape, lower deficits, lower debt, lower interest, delivered 2 surpluses, which the Governor herself has pointed as being very helpful, and we will continue that approach in the budget in May.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
The Reserve Bank said some of the increase in inflation reflects greater capacity pressures. This is a clear shot at your government's failure to address the productivity crisis. Industrial relations laws, failure to reform tax or reduce red tape, high-cost green policies that you said would be cheap but are not, a runaway spending on the $52 billion and climbing NDIS. When will the government take action to reduce the percentage of government spending across our economy that is now at a 40-year high?
Has expired.
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I don't accept a lot of what was in that question at all, and it was factually incorrect. The highest spending government was the Howard government, and not to be outdone by the COVID spending that occurred. So just let's be honest here.
Order.
In relation to government spending, we have found $114 billion worth of savings. When you sat in the cabinet room, Senator McKenzie, I don't think you found 20 cents. To be honest, I don't think you found a cent that went into savings. You spent a lot. The Nats spent a lot, and I can see ministers that, yeah, they're nodding. Liberal ministers are nodding because they know what the story was. Buckets of cash that went out to the regions without any detail. You didn't find a cent. We've found $114 billion, and there is more work to do.
Answering has expired. Senator McKenzie, second supplementary.
Yesterday's statement on monetary policy was a warning to the government. It sits alongside warnings from the IMF, the OECD, international rating agencies that speak to your government spending. With inflation likely to remain high for some time, what changes in policy will the government now adopt to protect families from the threat of further rate increases and cost increases as a result of inflation?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, the government will continue its responsible budget management. We will continue to look at how we provide effective cost of living support. And if you read the bits, all of the statement on monetary policy, you would have seen that the governor herself pointed out that the economy has a lot going for it. It's growing faster than other economies, other than the US. It is unemployment
McKenzie.
Is low when you look at comparable countries.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Wong.
President, I appreciate Senator McKenzie's contribution to the chamber, but it is becoming somewhat repetitive, and I would ask you to draw her to order. She's interjecting without a break.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Before you stood, I did call Senator McKenzie to order. You are currently doing a running commentary alongside the minister. So I would ask you to sit in silence for the remainder of her answer. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. We have low unemployment. We've managed to keep unemployment lower than comparable countries. That matters. People have stayed in employment, earning wages where we are supporting wage increases. There are strengths in our economy. Business investment is rebounding. We're seeing all of those things. Yes, we have to manage the inflation challenge, and the government will do that in the budget.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing, Senator Ayres. In my home state of WA, the median house price in Perth has recently hit $1 million. It won't be long before it overtakes Vancouver. For West Australians, initiatives like the Australian Government 5% deposit scheme mean either signing up to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars more to the bank in interest or missing the chance to own their own home, as prices continue to push upwards. Minister, my constituents are curious, why has the government forced first-home buyers to choose between these two bad options?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Just before I call Senator Ayres, I'll just alert my Tasmanian senators to the presence in the gallery of a state parliamentary colleague, Meg Brown. Senator Ayres.
Well, I suspect that won't be the first sort of Vancouver joke that'll get. But I'm delighted to have. I'm delighted to have Senator Payman's question about the housing questions. The truth, Senator Payman, is that 5% deposit scheme that was introduced by this government is a life-changing intervention for many, many young Australians. And it's all very well. I've heard some of the sort of heckling from this time from our friends in the Greens political party sneering from the vantage point of the homes that they own at young Australians who just want to have a go, who just want to get a foot on the ladder, It's all right to sneer from the sort of Max Chandler Mather, dinner party sort of position, the sort of I understand nuanced strategy position, but actually, ordinary people, young Australians, this has been for many of them the first time that they have seen an opportunity for themselves to be able to save a deposit and get in there, and they have been doing it. Unhappily for Senator Bragg's sort of negative Nancy argument, they have been doing it in droves, hand over fist, getting them and their partners, them and their families for the first time into a home. And that is what Labor is about, driving action in supply and giving people a fair crack at having a go at the housing market. And that is something that I thought you might have used to have supported.
The time for answering has expired. I'm waiting for the chamber to come to order. Senator McKim. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. My constituents, particularly young families who hope to own their newfound land one day, have told me the dream of home ownership is slipping away, and they tell me they're sick of the major parties passing this issue back and forth like a hockey puck. They also know that the 5% deposit scheme will push up prices. Minister, does the government believe that saddling a few Australians with a bigger mortgage and putting housing further out of reach for many more is a good deal?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator Payman, I'd leave the jokes to Senator McGrath. He's done a better job over the course of the last 24 hours, I think. Well, I'm not sure what the evidence base that you have from your sort of incoming Facebook and Instagram is on these questions. But I can tell you that 220,000 Australians, since we have come to office, have accessed that scheme so that they are able to, instead of facing a 10% deposit that is just such a long way away for many ordinary people, particularly young people, they can access a 5% deposit, get into the housing market, improve their home, make decisions about family life, expand their families, accrue the benefits of the capital gains. I know the Greens don't like them.
Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Minister, we don't know for sure what the Treasury thinks because the government has refused to release their modelling. OPD 208, which sought modelling on the 5% deposit scheme, was agreed to on 3rd November last year. The Minister for Housing asked for an extension more than 2 months ago. Like maple syrup without pancakes, it doesn't stack up. Why is the government covering up these documents which were ordered to be produced 93 days ago?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Ayres.
Well, this government has complied with more orders for production of documents in any one term than any Australian government ever. This includes, just yesterday, an order moved by Senator Bragg for a congratulatory letter. Mate, if you want a congratulatory letter, I'm sure I can organise one for you. The one that Senator Payman refers to includes ministerial submissions, records of conversation, letters, briefing notes, meeting agendas, file notes, meeting invitations, meeting notes, meeting minutes, emails, instant messages and electronic messages. We have produced 3,995 pages worth of documents in housing. That's more than 3 times longer than the full trilogy of Lord of the Rings. It's about 8 times as long as poor old Senator Bragg's last book, self-published, no doubt. Self-published.
Order. Senator Brown.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. In its first term, the Albanese Labor government delivered cost-of-living relief to all Australians by cutting the cost of medicines on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. On January 1st, the government continued its record, delivering more affordable and accessible health care to Australians. How is the government delivering cheaper medicines for all Australians?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister McAllister.
Thanks, President, and thank you, Senator Brown. Well, since January 1, I think you'll all know that there's been a lot of discussion about the year 2016, and there's been a lot of senators jumping on this trend, you know, the difference between 2016 and 2026. But I'd actually suggest that the date we should be talking about is probably 2004, because that is the last time that PBS medicines were as cheap as they are now. January 1 this year, families are paying no more than $25 when they are filling a prescription on the PBS, and that is a 20% cut. A 20% cut in the maximum cost of medicines under the PBS. And it means that Australians will save more than $200 million a year. And we've also frozen the cost of PBS medicines for pensioners and concession card holders. That cost is frozen at its current level of $7.70 until 2030. But as Senator Gallagher has already reminded the chamber, every single one of these measures was opposed by the Liberals, by the Nationals and by One Nation. They have been so busy focusing on themselves, looking for political angles, focusing on their internal factional arrangements. And if they had got their way, if the Liberals and the Nationals and One Nation had got their way, the maximum PBS general patient co-payment would be more than $50. More than $50 in 2026. So be really clear. Under those opposite, people would be paying twice as much per script as they are paying now, and it tells you everything about their priorities. They have got a lot of agendas, but helping Australian families is not one of them.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Brown, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, helping Australians access affordable health care when and where they need is a priority of the Albanese Labor government. In the new year, how has the government delivered new support so Australians have even greater access to health care?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, from January 1, if you need expert health advice or reassurance, every Australian can get free health advice through 1800 Medicare, and the registered nurses are there 24/7. They are there to provide advice and refer you to a health service that you need, whether that's your regular GP, your local hospital or a Medicare urgent care clinic. And if you do need urgent assistance, the triage nurses can connect you to a free telehealth session with a 1800 Medicare GP, and it's via phone or via video. They will also be available all weekend and weeknights between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. And we expect that about 250,000 Australians will avoid an unnecessary trip to a hospital emergency department each year thanks to 1800 Medicare. And if you need mental health support, you can access Medicare's free mental health check-in service too, because we want to make sure Australians can access free mental health care when they need it.
Senator Brown, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, how do new measures delivered on January 1st complement other actions that the Albanese Labor government is taking to strengthen Medicare and improve Australia's primary health care system? Why has the government chosen this approach?
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Brown. Well, we are expanding the availability of free urgent health care. There are now 122 Medicare urgent care clinics open across Australia, and they are giving our hospitals, our GPs and our communities the support that they need. The Albanese Labor government has also delivered the largest investment in the history of Medicare, $8.5 billion. And since our investment started, there are now 3,300 Medicare bulk billing practices nationwide. Over 1,200 of those clinics were previously mixed billing. previously mixed billing under the arrangements that were put in place by those opposite. And that's why we take the approach that we do, because we had to take action, because under those opposites, bulk billing rates were in freefall because of the Coalition's 6-year freeze of the Medicare rebate, which ripped billions out of the Medicare system.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. On the 29th of January 2025, the Prime Minister enthusiastically endorsed his Treasurer when he said that the worst of the inflation challenge is now well and truly behind us. A year later, inflation is now at 3.8%, well outside of the Reserve Bank's target band and higher than in every major advanced economy. Indeed, the Prime Minister's Finance Minister just 25 minutes ago said the job is not yet done. Australians were promised relief. Instead, they're facing higher prices, high interest rates and falling living standards. Minister, is the Prime Minister's Treasurer wrong then, or is he wrong now?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Well, can I first welcome Senator Hume back to the Senate and back to Senate question time. It's good to see you. It's good to see you back. You know, you really are just. He's enjoying that far too much. He's enjoying that far too much. Yeah. Senator Hume. Inflation it remains higher than we would like. The Treasurer, Senator Gallagher, have been front about that. We are front about that. I would make this point. It is certainly lower than the peak that existed and much lower than that which we inherited. And I think you, as a former shadow finance minister, would know that, Senator, that when we came to government, inflation was much higher. And that it is at a much lower rate now than it was when we came to government. But it is relevant, Senator Ruston, because it is pointing out where inflation has gone. But we have been upfront, Senator Hume, about inflation being higher than we would like. And as you would have heard, the Treasurer and Senator Gallagher yesterday and today speak about. What the data shows is that the inflation challenge is a mix of temporary factors but also persistent pressures. And so persistent pressures in areas like housing and temporary factors like the end of energy rebates, increases in travel costs and the like. And I'd make the point in relation to housing that obviously one of the ways you can deal with pressure in the housing market is to add to supply, which is why I reiterate the comments I made earlier to Senator Bragg, about the position he has taken your party to, which is to oppose all investment in housing supply by the government.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Hume,
Minister, thank you, Madam President. Minister, under Labor, government spending is growing at its fastest rate outside of a recession in nearly 40 years. Now, every credible economist will tell you that government spending is adding to inflationary pressure, forcing the Reserve Bank to keep interest rates higher for longer. When this was pointed out to the Treasurer, he said that those economists were making political comments. But, Minister, why won't the Prime Minister hold this Treasurer responsible for the fact that his spending is making the Reserve Bank job harder?
The question has expired. Minister Wong.
Well, I'll make two comments on that. First, in relation to the SMP and the decision of the Reserve Bank. The statement made clear that the pressure on inflation is coming from private demand. So your question is predicated on an inaccuracy. Second, Senator, and I hesitate to do this, but I think that question does invite it. That I would remind you that you were a shadow finance minister who went to the election with a plan for higher taxes, bigger deficits, larger deficits, and more debt. More debt. I mean, this was the position that you and Shadow Treasurer was that Mr Taylor? Yeah. Was that Mr Taylor? Mr Taylor, went to the election with this team, set out to the Australian people a coalition fiscal strategy for the election for higher taxes, larger deficits and more debt.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Minister, Australians are poorer today than they were 4 years ago. Under Labor, we've experienced the largest decline in living standards in the developed world, and it's no coincidence that it's your policy positions that have caused this. Minister, is the Prime Minister sorry or even aware that Australians are poorer under Labor?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Not only is the Prime Minister aware, but he has been absolutely focused since he was elected on doing all that he could, as we all have, to address cost of living pressures that Australians feel. And, Senator, can I remind you of how many of those cost of living measures you opposed? I mean, you come in here now talking about cost of living pressures. I mean, you have no credibility, Senator. You have no credibility on this. You were—
Order! Order! Minister Wong, please continue.
You have no credibility on this, Senator, and neither does your party or your parties, because you consistently, individually and collectively, oppose cost of living measures that we sought to bring in order to address the pressures that Australians face. You oppose them. You oppose them. So I think we all understand that inflation is a challenge, and we are working to do what is required to get inflation down.
The time for
and on the basis
has
of that, Senator, President, I ask that further questions be placed.